Hey everyone, as you may or may not know, January is viewer request month here on my channel, and I feel very fortunate that one of your most requested videos actually lines up with something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. I've just been putting it off and putting it off. So thank you for giving me the motivation to actually get this done. I've been dreading this, to be honest with you, but I know I'm going to be so glad when it's finally finished. So as you saw in the title, I'm going to be decluttering my eyeshadow palettes today. It's been a very long time coming, and I keep a ton of eyeshadow palettes because if you are a longtime viewer of my channel, you know that I often do comparisons and I find dupes when new eyeshadow palettes are coming out. I try to find some in my collection that are similar and give you guys options and let you know whether it's worth buying a new one or not. So having a really large collection helps me to do that. But at the same time, it's just gotten really overwhelming. And not only am I out of space, but the clutter is just really starting to get to me. So I'm going to do my best to thin these out as much as I possibly can. And I'm also going to give you mini reviews on each one throughout the video. So if that sounds good, hang tight, grab a snack, and let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. All right, guys, so the first part of the room that I want to tackle are these bins that I actually sit in front of when I film my videos. Usually just see the upper part up here, but they're just overflowing with palettes. So I want to thin these out as much as I can and just make some more room because as you can see, they're just everywhere. So let's start with the first bin. All right, so this first bin here is where I keep all of my dupe palettes. So these are palettes from Alter Ego. I have some from C-Color Cosmetics, and they're actually not in business anymore. So I'm thinking I'm probably gonna get rid of most of those. So I'm gonna empty this all out and we'll take a look. All right, so as you can see, I do have a lot of palettes here. I'm basically just gonna get rid of these C-Color ones because, like I said, they're discontinued. I'm not gonna be able to talk about them on my channel anymore. And I have the original versions of all of these dupes, so it really doesn't make sense for me to have both. I originally kept both just because I would sometimes talk about the dupes, but if I can't do that on my channel, there's no point in keeping them. I do think that they were really good quality, but as I said, I'd rather just keep the original and the one that is still current. So just as an example to show you, they had, this version of the Glam palette from Natasha Denona. They had Urban Decay dupes, like this was the Naked Cherry, or the Around the World palette was a dupe for Urban Decay, Born to Run. They just, honestly, they had a dupe for just about everything. Whimsical was a dupe for the Norvina palette. We had Galaxy. This was a Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde dupe. So like I said, there were just tons of these palettes, and they often had their own color stories that they would come out with as well. So they weren't all dupes, but I thought they were a really good brand, and I'm sad to see them go out of business. But because I just have very limited space here, it doesn't make sense for me to keep these. I will gift them to friends and family and donate what I can. I also have some palettes from She Glam. These aren't necessarily dupes for anything. I guess I just had thrown them into this bucket. But basically, I don't support She Glam anymore. I used to be on their PR list, which is why I have so many of their palettes. But they're owned by Shein, which has been in the news a lot recently in the past year or so for unethical working conditions, not paying their workers enough. And I don't know, I feel kind of funny supporting a company like that. So I no longer talk about She Glam on my channel. So I'm definitely just going to be getting rid of these as well. Okay, so I just decluttered 39 palettes. So we're off to a really good start. And that leaves us with Alter Ego. I'm definitely keeping all of these. These are also dupe palettes, and I think they are amazing quality. I have so many videos on my channel applying this on one side of my face and the original palette on the other side. And I can honestly say, while the formulas aren't always exactly the same, I've been able to get pretty much the exact same looks with these palettes, and I feel like they're long lasting on my eyes too. So anyway, let's just go through these really quick. First up, we have the Goddess palette. This one is a dupe for Natasha Denona's Gold palette. So I love this one. Next, we have Aurora. This one is a dupe for Natasha Denona's Sunset palette, another really good one. Daydream is a Huda Beauty dupe, so this is for the new Nude palette. Again, I feel like they really captured all of the different textures that palette has, and the colors as well. Sahara is a dupe for Natasha Denona's Biba palette. This is another really good one. It's mostly matte shades. Then we have Canyon, which is a Natasha Denona bronze dupe. Artemis is another Natasha Denona dupe. This one is for her Metropolis palette. And then Blooms is a dupe for the Natasha Denona Love Palette. So if you need a Natasha Denona dupe, definitely check out Alter Ego because they pretty much have all of her palettes here. Temptress is a dupe for the Anastasia Sultry palette. The formula on this is so good and the Sultry palette is sold out. I'm not sure if this one is still available. I'll have to look, but it's a really good one if you can get it. Then we have Luster. This one is a Pat McGrath Divine Rose dupe. And I felt like this one came really close as well. Then Shadow Kiss is a dupe for Natasha Denona's Glam palette. This is a great one if you like neutrals. And then Harmony is a dupe for the Retro palette from Natasha Denona. I love this color story, especially in the fall and winter. Mirage is a dupe for the Huda Beauty Empowered palette. So this one is fairly new. I haven't used it a lot, but I did compare them in a video and this was fantastic. Then we have Midsummer, which is a dupe for Anastasia's Nouveau palette. This was another really, really good one and fairly new. And then Coastal is a Rose Quartz dupe from Huda Beauty. This one is also very new. I believe it's been out of stock for a little while, but hopefully they'll be bringing it back very soon. This was another amazing one. So let's see how many palettes I have here. Okay, so in total I have 14 Alter Ego palettes and I got rid of 39 from this drawer. So we're off to a good start. All right, guys, this next drawer is the one that I've been dreading. It's Colourpop. I have so many Colourpop palettes. I really need to thin these out because I have no more space for them. I have them in this drawer and also I have some in the next one over. So, all right, let's get to it. All right, so I figured we'd get the little ones out of the way first because I really don't reach for these all that often and Colourpop seems to be phasing them out anyway, so I'm gonna keep very few of these. First up, we have the Bambi collection. So these were little 5-pan palettes. I mean, they were really cute. They were a Disney collab, but I don't know. I never really reached for them beyond when I first got them. They were more monochromatic. This one was probably my favorite. I love this color story. But I have these colors in many other Colourpop palettes, so I'm going to go ahead and declutter these. Also, they had these 5 pans as well. These came out a while ago, and these were really nice. I mean, I liked them, but again, I didn't think they were anything super unique or special. Some of them had pressed glitters, which I'm not crazy about, so I'm going to put these in the declutter pile as well. And do you guys remember these little Hello Kitty quads? These were really bright, fun colors, but just not really what I normally wear on an everyday basis. So I figured I'd probably declutter these too, but these were really cute. And then these were from a couple of years ago. I believe they actually had Super Shock formulas in them. Let me see really quick. Yeah, some of these are creams and they just kind of dried out. So, you know, I don't really reach for these anymore. This one was Shell Shocked and this one is What the Shell. They had released face quads with this collection too that I really liked, but I'm likely not going to use these anymore. And then we had the little 4-pan quads. These are really nice. I thought that the formula on them was a little bit better even than their bigger palettes. I don't know why or if that was all in my head, but these were great. The only thing is I collected a lot of these when they had like big sales on them and stuff. And I don't know, I don't reach for them, especially these ones that are a little bit darker. I almost never wear darker shimmer shades on my lids. So I'm going to get rid of any of those that are just like a little bit too deep for me. This one actually is a pretty good alternative to something like the Natasha Denona Xenon palette. This one is nickel and dimed. I don't know if this is still around. Like I said, they're kind of phasing these out a bit. But if you just want something for a really simple black and gray kind of a look, this is a good one. This one was a little bit too deep for me as well. This was Tidal Wave. They had some that were Zodiac inspired. This one was the Bold and the Aries. I don't know, just it was okay. Not really my color story. Peaches and Dreams. This one was okay as well, but there were a few more like this that I liked a little bit better. Like this one, for example. I think I would keep this just because it has the brown in there and it just is a little bit less monochromatic. I feel like there's a little more I could do with it. So this one is extra toppings. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to declutter Peaches and Dreams. I'll keep this one because I do use this one sometimes. And I also love this one too. This was from the Zodiac collection. It's Tender Loving Cancer. And I love the duochromes that are in here. I think it's super pretty. I'm not really a bright pink fan, so I'm going to declutter Berry Jam because I just don't wear this one. And then we have Citrus Fizz and Cream Soda. I think I'm going to keep Cream Soda. It's just a little bit less warm. I like the tones of the mattes and the shimmers a little bit more in this one. So I'm going to keep this. Pisces in the Sky was another really pretty one. I use this a lot in the summer. And again, I love this duochrome shade. I might hang on to this one. I think it's really cute. And I also liked this color story a lot. This is Sorbet, and it had beautiful rosy tones. So I'm going to hang on to this one. Creamsicle is another peachy one. I just feel like there's so many that looked really similar. So I'm going to declutter this. And this was beautiful purple shades. I really liked this a lot, but I don't know, I just have so many purple palettes. And while I loved this shimmer shade, I really didn't wear this one at all. It was just too dark for me. So I guess I'm gonna put this one in the declutter too. This one is Violet B. So, all right, so out of this stack, I am decluttering 24 and I'm keeping 5. So again, we're doing really well so far. Next, let's move on to mega palettes. These are also going to be pretty easy because I'm going to keep almost all of them. I just enjoy these so much. I know a lot of people feel like they're overwhelming, but I love that I can just pick up one palette and I can do so many different looks with it. So first up, we have So Jaded. This was the Kathleen Lights collab, and I believe this has been discontinued. I don't wear this one nearly as much as I did when I first got it. So I think out of all of them, this one's going to be the first to go. It does have some pressed glitters that I don't use. And also, I don't know, I might be in the minority with this one, but I just felt like the color story was a little bit disjointed. And I felt like this was harder to use because it was all over the place as far as the colors. You have a little bit of green, a little orange, like some blue. I don't know, I just never really figured out how to put together too many looks with this one. I didn't feel like the color story was as cohesive as I normally like. So I do think I'm gonna declutter this one. Next up, I have Your Golden. This is a beautiful warm tone color story. It does have the 2 pops of blue, but overall, if I want warm tones, this is a great one to reach for. It has such pretty peachy colors and it has a lot of neutrals that are on the warmer side as well. So I'm gonna keep this one. Getting Fresh was another pretty one. I love this for the summer. You do have those pops of lime green. You have this pink here that's really beautiful. You have some duochrome shades, which I also like with the little shift to them. So I feel like this is a really beautiful palette that, you know, again, you have your neutrals, but you also have some fun pops of color for the summertime. So I'm gonna keep this one. Rock Candy is one of my favorites. I wear this one a lot because it has really cool tones. I have some rosy shades, some silver and gray, and some taupes as well. So this is another big hit for me. I love this one. Aurora Struck is one that I don't wear as often as I probably should, but I really love the color story. So I want to hang on to it because I just think the purples and pinks in here especially are beautiful. And I've really made some looks with this palette that I enjoy so much. It's just that overall it kind of goes a little bit deeper than what I normally am wearing. So that's the reason I don't reach for it as much as I would like to, but I do use it every once in a while. So I want to keep this. It's a Mood was a fall release from, I believe, last year, 2022. And this one is, again, beautiful fall color story. This one kind of took the place of the Kathleen Lights one, and I just liked this one better because even though it still has a lot of color in it, it also is just more cohesive. Like you can just look down a row and kind of know what to do with it. Like you have these orange and peachy shades, you have the purples, the blues, the greens. It's organized, I guess, a little bit better, and it's just more aesthetically pleasing. So once I got this one, I pretty much stopped using So Jaded. So anyway, this is another one I'm gonna keep. Smoke and Roses, I think you guys already know if you've watched my channel for a while. I love this. I'm a huge rosy toned eyeshadow fan, and this is one of my favorite of the mega palettes, so I'm gonna keep this one as well. Gone Matte is an all matte palette, and this one, again, I just think you have so many beautiful matte shades in here to choose from. If I need a matte, I can just go in this palette and I have so many different options. You have kind of this half of the palette that's more warm toned. You have some cooler shades over here. I love the way it's laid out, so I'm gonna keep this. Next up is Bare Necessities. This is another one. It's just a classic. It's an everyday staple. Mine is super messy, so obviously it's very well loved. And again, rosy tones, neutrals, kind of boring, but at the same time, if I want something that's a little bit more on the warmer tone side, this one is perfect for that. Stone Cold Fox is probably my favorite out of all of them. I use this one the most. It has cool tones mainly. There are a few warm shades in here, but I feel like they don't go super warm. Like this brown row right here, it's a little bit warmer, but it's more toward neutral. You also have rosy shades. It's really just like the perfect neutral palette if you like cooler tones. So I can't recommend this one enough. It's just one that I reach for over and over and over again. So I love that. And then Smokin' Hot is a relatively newer palette. I think I got this back over the summer, like this past summer. And this is really warm shades. So it definitely goes a bit warmer than the golden one that I showed in the beginning, or Bare Necessities. This is one to use if you really want those beautiful fall rich shades. So I'm going to keep this one too because it's a little bit different than all the others. So I'm keeping 10 mega palettes, just decluttering the one. Okay, so moving on, this is another category that I think will be relatively simple to declutter. So I just want to get these out of the way. So these are their 9-pan palettes that are in the clear plastic packaging, and these are mostly Target exclusives. And for some reason, I don't know what it is, again, if it's just me or if you guys have noticed this too, but I don't feel like the quality of the formula is as good in these as it is in some of the other ones. And they can vary. I've tried some of these that are pretty terrible and other ones that I feel like are decent. So what I've done here is just kind of categorize them into color stories because some of them are really similar and I don't want to keep ones that are too close together. Like it just doesn't make sense. So I figured first, let's look at these. These all kind of have a purple color story. So we have Sweet Vibes, In a Daze, and Vibe Check. So if I had to pick one out of these three, I would say I would probably choose Sweet Vibes. And the reason for that is because these two have a lot of these really pinky purple shades. And I find that when those go on my skin, they end up looking very pink. And I have to be careful with pink eyeshadow because I feel like sometimes it can make me look sick. And this one also, it doesn't have a lot of purple in it. It just has really these two, and then the rest is more on the neutral side. I like this one because it has purples that are a little bit more blue based for the most part. It does have these over here that are a little more pink, but I like, you know, the addition of the silver in this one. I just think it's a little bit more versatile. So I'm going to keep this one and declutter those two. Also, we have some warm toned neutrals. So we have Send Nudes and Island Vacay. And I think I like Island Vacay a little better than Send Nudes. I just like the undertone of this one more. This one is a little bit more yellowy of an undertone, kind of a mustardy type shade like over here and over here. And this one has some rosier colors. So I like Ocean Villa and So Breezy. I think even like when it comes to the neutrals, they're just more neutral. They're not that like mustard shade. And I really don't wear that type of color all that often. So I think out of the two, I'll probably keep this one and declutter this one. Then when it comes to the green palettes, there's 3 different ones. We have New Money, Super Bloom, and The Feels. The Feels isn't really like a super green palette. Honestly, it has a green shade in the middle and the rest is very neutral, but I do like this one. I've used this one many times and I really don't reach for these two. I do like green shadows though. I think I might actually keep 2 from here. I might keep Super Bloom and The Feels. This one is just a little bit brighter and it has kind of some more blue in it than Super Bloom does. So I'm going to declutter New Money and I'm going to keep these. Next up, we have some cool tone palettes. So we have Extra Coin, Daydreaming. I love both of these, honestly. Moving Up, and then Truly Iconic. Oh my gosh, this is going to be really hard to pick because I like all of these. I don't know. I think Truly Iconic and Extra Coin are pretty similar just as far as the color stories go. I think I probably prefer Extra Coin over here. So I'm gonna, I guess, declutter this one. But out of these two, I don't know, they're different. I mean, Daydreaming has that beautiful duochrome shade in the middle that I use quite a bit. I love this color as well. It even has this gorgeous gray with a green undertone that's really unique, but I also really like this mauvey one too. I don't know, I might keep 3 in this category just because these are the shades that I tend to use the most often. So I'll hang on to these 3. And then in this last pile, we have some warmer tones. We have Muse Moment, Pink Drink. I don't really wear either one of these. This one, it's cute, but it's kind of like a mini version of the Gettin' Fresh Mega Palette with the warm tones and the neutrals and then the pops of green. So I might declutter this one. I also just don't wear pinks on my eyes very much, so I'm gonna get rid of this one as well. And then we have these three that are more orangey. We have Sunny Days, Weekend Mood, and Forever Floral. Again, these aren't ones that I really reach for. I mean, looking at these three, I think I could safely declutter this one. I just don't see myself wearing these colors very much. And then we have Forever Floral and Weekend Mood. Out of the two, I think I have palettes that look just like this a million times over. Forever Floral is a little bit different, so I might keep this one. Let me just see. I mean, I don't know, even just looking at it up close, the matte shades that I would put in my crease are like very pink. I don't even know if I would wear this one either. I might actually just declutter all of these in this category. So, all right, let's see what we're left with. So final count, I am decluttering 10 and keeping 7. Next up, I have 6 of their 16 pan eyeshadow palettes. I feel like they haven't made one of these in a really long time, but there's only 1 or 2 that I'm gonna keep from this stack, and the first one is Fame. So this was a cool toned eyeshadow palette, and I feel like this came out before cool tones really started having a moment, and it didn't last. They discontinued it, and so many people really love this palette and wish that they would bring it back. I just use this one so much. It doesn't look like it, but before I got Stone Cold Fox, this was basically what I was using almost exclusively every single day. So I am going to hang on to it. It just kind of has a special place in my collection, and I should take it out and start playing with this a little bit more. I really like it a lot. And another one that I definitely want to keep is Lust for Dusk. This one is just a really beautiful kind of grungy muted color story. It has color, but they're very soft and, like I said, just more muted. So this is another one that I reach for a lot, especially because I don't like bright color, but if I want a little bit of color on my eyes, I like this one. Next, we have the Through My Eyes palette. This was a collab palette, and this was really old. I've had this for so many years. I don't even know when this came out. It could have been like 2016, 2017. It's pretty, but I haven't touched it in years, so it's time to let it go. Same thing with the Perception palette. This was a collab that they did with Shayla, and this reminded me a lot of the Urban Decay Born to Run color story, and it kind of came out around the same time. So this is another, it's just super old, definitely time to let it go. Fortune is one that came out right at the same time as Fame. So Fame was the cool tone version. Fortune was the warmer toned version. I really didn't use this one nearly as much as Fame, and I have so many warm tones in my collection, so I'm gonna declutter this. And then the last one I have is Truly Madly Deeply. I think this was a Valentine's Day release, and it was really pretty. I love the colors in here, but it also had 3 pressed glitters that I never wear. I do have these pinks and rosy tones in other palettes, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and just declutter this one too. So out of the 6, I am decluttering 4, keeping 2. All right, this next category has a lot of their collab palettes and ones that just weren't like the typical 12 pan shape or the 16 pan. They were all kind of different and mixed up. So let's start with Flirty Talk first. This is an all pink palette, definitely not my vibe at all. So I'm definitely going to declutter this one. This is pretty easy. Next, we have Roaring Hearts. I don't even really remember this one too well, and it looks like I didn't even use it, actually. It looks brand new. So I may just gift this to somebody in my family. It's just a really basic neutral palette. So I think they probably had sent this to me in PR with the collection a while ago. So definitely gonna declutter this and just give it to someone. Next up, we have Sandstone. I remember this one. This was a really pretty warm tone palette, but again, I just feel like it's nothing special. I have these colors so many times over. So I think I'm gonna put this one in the declutter. I remember this one too, Garden Variety. So yeah, this is another one I really haven't touched in a long time. I think the colors are pretty, but I just struggled with this one because it was hard to find ways to get all of these shades to go together. It felt a little bit disjointed, even though I like all the colors individually. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and declutter this too, just because I don't see myself reaching for it all that often. All I See Is Magic was holiday 2017. They actually put the date right on here. That's how I remember. But this was one of my favorite palettes. I loved this one. I thought these colors were so pretty. I loved that it was a little bit colorful, but not bright or over the top. And this was back when like their original formula, I think, was better than the one now. So I just thought that the quality on this was excellent, and I've hung on to it for the past 7 years just because I think it's so pretty. I don't know. It's one of those nostalgic things for me. I might have to just keep it. Same with this one. This was the Disney Villains Misunderstood palette, and this one too. I mean, do you guys remember this? They had the Disney Princess one, which I actually have too, and then the Disney Villain. So this one was actually mostly shimmer shades. You just had these two mattes right here, but this was another just classic Colourpop palette. So, you know, there's a couple that I think I'm going to hang on to just for the nostalgia, and this is one of them. This was a Muppets collab that they did, I believe, last year for holiday, and it was another really bright, fun color story, but just not one that I reach for. I remember doing a video on this, and I did a couple of looks with this palette that I thought came out really pretty, but it's just not one that I'm going to use very often. So I'm going to declutter this too. The Disney Princess palette was one of my favorites as far as the colors that were in here. They're just so soft and beautiful. I believe this is still available for sale as well. So if you like the look of this, I think it's still on their website. I'm sure I have these colors in other palettes too, but I just really like this one, so I'm going to keep it. Winx Club is another collab that they did. I don't even know what Winx Club is, to be honest. So, you know, I'm probably going to declutter this one. It was another just really bright color story that is just not me. So I'm going to put this in the declutter pile. By the way, these were sent in PR, so these are not ones that I would normally buy for myself. Anyway, moving on, Legend of Korra. This one was fairly recent, but it's also one that I just don't really wear all that much. It's not quite as bright as the other two that I just showed, but at the same time, I feel like it looks really similar to the Harry Potter one. Let's just take a look at that. I feel like these were so close. Yeah, so here's Harry Potter and here's Legend of Korra. I just think the Harry Potter one is a little bit nicer, so I'll probably keep that one and just declutter this. And then we have the Hocus Pocus palettes. So the original is by far my favorite, Gather Round Sisters. It's just beautiful. Love just these really muted, softer colors, the purples, the green. It's an awesome color story for fall if you don't want to go with the bright orange and yellow and red like all the other fall palettes. I just love this so much. I wish they hadn't discontinued it, but I'm definitely going to hang on to it. And then they had round 2, which I didn't love as much. This is kind of like a brighter version of it for those who like a little bit more color. Personally, I don't wear this one very often, but I'll probably hang on to it anyway just because I have the other one, and in the fall sometimes they re-release these, so if I have to show swatches and things like that, you know, I'll just hang on to it for now. So in this category, I'm decluttering 7 and keeping 6. And then the next stack is also 9-pan palettes, but these are the ones in the plastic packaging that don't have the see-through lid. So the first one is Smoke Show, and this is actually now called Blow and Smoke, but it's the exact same palette, same colors inside. And I think this is a great alternative to the Natasha Denona Xenon palette. So I'm definitely hanging on to this one. I think it's great if you like black and gray and silver. It's just a really pretty color story. The next one is Brown Sugar. This one, oh my gosh, I forgot about this one, but it was one of my absolute favorites at the time. I don't know what it was about this color story that just really spoke to me. It's warmer toned, but then you also have like the blue. It's kind of like a blue-gray shimmer, and then also a matte kind of in that similar tone. I don't know, I just felt like the colors went so well together. I really like this one still. It's probably really old and I probably shouldn't use it anymore, but again, it's one of those nostalgia things. So I think I might want to keep it for just a little bit longer. I don't know. All right, I'll keep it for now. Next we have My Pleasure, or It's My Pleasure, and this one was an all purple palette. This one is super old as well. It's been around a long time. I don't even know if the formula is any good anymore. I mean, yeah, it's still actually swatching pretty nicely. So, I don't know. This is like an original. I might keep this one just because I really like the colors in it. I don't know if I'll use it, but next time I do a declutter, I may get rid of it then. Main Squeeze was kind of like an all reddish tone palette, so I probably will declutter this one. I don't use these colors very often. A lot of these are very monochromatic, so you have to really like the color that, you know, that it has inside. Just My Luck was a green one. I know I just kept a green one that was in the plastic packaging with the clear lid. This one, I really haven't reached for it much. It's kind of brighter greens, and I usually gravitate toward more olivey greens or, you know, something a little bit more muted. So this one's a classic, but I may declutter this one. Ooh La La is a bright pink palette. This is also another one of their classic 9 pans, but it's something that I never reach for. I actually think they still sell this one, so you can still buy it on their website, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna just go ahead and declutter this one. Next we have Orchid You Not. So, oh, this one was really pretty actually. I really like these tones. I don't think it's something that they sell anymore though, and I probably have these colors in other palettes. This is actually a really hard one, but if I look at the shimmer shades, there's really 2 that I like the best, these 2, and then these are kind of like a little bit darker than I would normally wear on my lids. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think I might actually declutter this one. Next up is Lucky Penny, and this one, I mean, it was just a basic warm tone neutral palette, so nothing super special or unique about this one. So I think I'm going to put this one in the declutter also. Baby Got Peach. Some of these I really forgot about. This one, again, it looks like a lot of the other ones that are already in my collection. It has this pressed glitter here that kind of almost looks like it doesn't make sense within the palette. I think I'm gonna declutter this too. Mar and Soul actually came out around the same time. These were some of their very first 9 pan palettes. So Mar had basically warm neutrals with pops of blue and turquoise. So these are really, really old and I never reach for them. So I'm gonna declutter both of these. Soul was just brighter, like orangey, warm neutrals. So next we have Aha Honey. I remember like all the hype when this one came out, people were loving it because it was something a little bit more unique and different with the yellows. I really don't have a lot of color stories like this, but it's also not colors that I really wear all that often. I still might keep it in case I ever have to compare it to something, but I would say this is one that I would probably keep just for my channel, not necessarily for me personally. And then we have Blue Moon. This one I've rarely ever touched. I think I swatched it once and that was it because I just really don't wear blue eyeshadow very much. So I am going to put this in the declutter. And then we had Orange You Glad. This one, it was just like an orange monochromatic palette. And again, not really something that I reach for. So this is getting decluttered as well. So let's see how we did. All right, so out of these, I'm decluttering 10 and keeping 4. And then this is the last of my 9 pans. These are the ones that come in the cardboard packaging. Oh, actually, I forgot about Going Coconuts. This one is the plastic. This should have been in the last category. Another one that I really, really love. This is probably my favorite of the 9 pans and the one that I use the most. So I'm going to put this one just with the others. So I guess I was decluttering 10 and keeping 5. Okay, so back to these. These, I have some favorites that I just know I'm going to keep and the rest are just going to declutter. So we'll go through these really quickly. One of the ones I'm keeping is Of Quartz. I love this one because it's those cooler tone neutrals and it kind of reminds me of a smaller version of Stone Cold Fox. So, you know, if I'm traveling or if I just don't really want to use a big palette, but I still want those tones, this one is perfect. It's a little bit deeper and smokier too. So I like this one for those types of looks. This one is Bird of Paradise. I don't even really remember these too well. It's just a bright orange color story. I feel like a lot of these just look very repetitive over the years and very similar to each other. So there's really no need to keep all of these. So I'm going to declutter this one. Lovebird was also part of that collection. This one had 3 pressed glitters in it and just a lot of pinks, which I don't really wear very much. So declutter as well. They also had a Frozen 2 collab. So we have the Elsa palette. I thought this one was actually really pretty. I like the colors in here. It's very cool toned. But as you can see, I haven't really used it very much. I think I swatched it once and that was about it. So I'm just not going to keep these. Then we had Anna, which was also really pretty. This one was warmer tones, but I'm going to go ahead and declutter this too. Sage the Day is one of my favorites as well. I love the greens in here. These are the types of greens that I reach for really often compared to those brighter ones. So this is a really, really good one. Definitely hanging on to it. Night Owl was also part of the Bird collection. And this one, I mean, it was really beautiful. It's deeper browns and they're definitely on the warm tone side, but I liked this darker antique gold, and this one, Bird Brain, was like my favorite shade. As you can see, that's probably the most used. Really pretty, but again, I just have so many neutrals, and this is really old, so declutter this one. We also have quite a few Star Wars palettes. We had the C-3PO one, which was a lot of gold, which, I mean, obviously, but I don't know. I think this is still available, so I may just hang on to it in case I ever have to refer back to it for any reason. Same thing with the Darth Vader palette. This is very cool toned as well. I wasn't crazy about the red, like I get why they put it in the palette, but the other shades are really nice, and I did use this quite a bit, so I'll keep this one. That's Taupe is one of my absolute favorites when it comes to the 9 pans. And this is also very similar to the Stone Cold Fox palette, except I think, you know, this one is a little bit less smoky than Of Quartz. So this one, I feel like I reach for more as an everyday type of palette, and Of Quartz is a little bit more smoky. Feeling Bubbly. I remember this one. This is pretty, but again, just very, very basic. I have these colors in so many palettes. So I'm just going to declutter this one. The Child palette. This is also those really pretty greens that I like a lot. Compared to Sage the Day, let me just take a look. See if we have repeats. I mean, yeah, actually, they're so close. Not a whole lot of difference between them, if I'm being honest, but also Sage the Day is a newer palette for me. This one is much older and is probably going to go bad quicker. So Sage the Day, I guess, is kind of like my backup. So I'll just keep both of these for now. It seems kind of silly to do that, but I feel like because the Child palette is so old now, I'm probably not going to use it as much. I'll probably use Sage the Day more, but I just want to keep this because it's still available. And like I said, in case I need to refer back to it on my channel. Next, we have Hello Kitty and Friends. I don't even really remember this one too well, but it's a pretty color story. I definitely like it. I like this half of the palette, and I wish they kind of expanded on that a little more. I think these just don't seem to go together with it very well, but it's another one that I really don't use, and I forgot that I even had it. So it's going in the declutter pile. High Tide. I remember getting this one when I was on vacation. I went to an Ulta in the town where I was staying out in Mystic, Connecticut, and it was just such a fun and summer palette. And even though I don't wear blues very much, I like this one because these colors are not super bright. You have these gorgeous, almost like grayish blues and kind of turquoise shades. So I might keep this one, actually. I'm kind of surprising myself by saying that, but I do remember creating some very like mermaid inspired eye looks with this, so I'm gonna keep it. Nude Mood is another classic. This one is just basic warm neutrals again, but it's a staple. I think they do still have it on their website, so I'm gonna hang on to this one for right now. It is one that I've used quite a bit. Petals on Point is, I think this was like a release from last year, and I really like this. It's a kind of a ballerina vibe, very, very cool toned, really soft and pretty, and it's really unlike anything else that I have from them. So I think I'm going to keep this one for now. The Mandalorian palette. This one actually was really beautiful too. It has some cool tones and some warm. This half of the palette is kind of more cool. You have a few warm tones over there, but I like it. This one also has kind of a deeper, more smoky vibe. So I might keep this one. Making Mauves is another favorite. I kind of feel like I should get a new one because over time these shadows have really hardened up and they're hard to pick up in the pan. Some of them, not all of them, but I just enjoyed this palette so much. If they still make it, I'm probably just going to get a new one, but I'm going to keep it for now until I get a replacement if I can. So I love this one. All Things Equinox. This one, I want to say this was an Ulta exclusive. Again, it's very pretty. It's a little more cool toned. It's definitely my vibe, but it doesn't stand out to me as a favorite or one that I used a bunch. So I think I'll declutter it. Grandeur, this was another Ulta exclusive, and it was very deep and smoky. I want to say this was a holiday release from several years ago now. And again, it's pretty, but it's not one that I really used very often, and I have a lot of these shades. So this is going to go in the declutter, and she's got Solstice. This was another one, I think was a summer or spring release, and very pretty. I like the overall vibe, and I actually think these colors are very striking against the green background, but if you kind of don't look at that, it's really, they're not that extraordinary when it comes to these colors. I have them a million times over. So I'm going to declutter this one. And last but not least is all amethyst. This one is actually one of my favorites as well. So I am definitely hanging on to it. It's beautiful purples. And when it comes to color, purple and green are my favorites. And these are the types of purples that I love with that a little bit of a bluish undertone. So, all right, I'm going to keep this one. So final totals. 10 being decluttered, I'm keeping 12. I didn't do quite as well with this one, but I definitely have a lot of favorites in this style packaging. So, all right, let's move on to the 12 pans. Okay, so this is where it's actually gonna get a little bit tricky for me because I have so many of these and so many that I really like. And also I have some from the very beginning when Colourpop first started doing palettes that have a lot of nostalgia. So it's gonna be really tough to get rid of some of these, but I'm gonna try my best. So first up, we have the Cloud 9 palette. This I'm absolutely keeping. It's a brand new palette I got very recently, and this color story is right up my alley. I love the cool tones. It's very soft and ethereal as well. It doesn't go super deep, but I think for my skin tone, it's just a really beautiful palette. So definitely keeping that one. Troublemaker is another one that I really like. This one is more deep and smoky, but I love these cool tones. I'm not even sure that they make this one anymore, but honestly, I don't care because I love it so much. I'm just going to keep it and use it for me. This one is I Think I Love You, and this is one of the classics, an original, maybe from like the first year that Colourpop was doing palettes, or maybe the second year at the most, but this was one of the first ones that I remember getting. And it's just warm tone neutrals that we've seen over and over and over, but I like keeping these ones from back then, so I don't know. I feel like I'm going to keep it still. Same thing with the She palette. This was, I think it could have been one of their first collabs, if not their first collab. And I loved this color story too. Again, it has that wonderful formula that they had in the very beginning. The shimmer shades just have this really rich feel that, I don't know, they just don't have today. So I think I'm going to hold on to this one as well. I really like this one. Good Sport, you all know I am definitely keeping this. This was a fall release from, I think, 2018. Mine is still going strong. I love this. I'm never getting rid of it. It's one that I keep hoping that they'll bring back in the fall, but so far they haven't. I don't know why, but I think it would sell out like crazy. You Had Me at Hello. This is another original from like the first year or two that Colourpop was making palettes. It was a beautiful kind of rosier tone color story. Love this one. So I think I'm still going to hang on to it for now. This also gives me so much nostalgia, the Dream Street palette from Kathleen Lights. I think I want to keep this one too, just because it's like a piece of makeup history, you know, like everybody loved this so much. I kind of like looking back on that time when makeup was just so exciting for everybody. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I definitely do. I'm going to keep that one for now. My Little Pony. This was another collab that they did very early on. And this one was super pretty too. I mean, it's colorful, but also not super bright. So, I don't know. I think I'm going to keep this one too. We're not doing so well here, guys. Next up is Zodiac. This was also a Kathleen Lights collab, and this one I wasn't as crazy about as I was with Dream Street. This one was a little bit harder to kind of put looks together with, just because I don't know, for me, it feels a little disjointed. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I had a hard time figuring out what to do with all of these colors, so I think I'm actually going to declutter this one. Okay, so here we have Colourpop's very first palette. You can see how much mine is beat up. This was called Yes Please. And this was when Colourpop was mostly known for their Super Shock shadows and their lippy sticks. And when they started releasing palettes, everybody just went absolutely crazy for them. Not to mention, this was being compared to the Natasha Denona Sunset palette, which was really big at the time. And everybody felt like this was an incredible dupe, which I think it is. So I'm going to hang on to this one. All right, we got to declutter some of these. So here's the Limoncello palette. I loved the artwork on this. I thought it was beautiful. And then inside they had the larger pan sizes that they started doing for a while. And, you know, it's pretty, but as you can see, it's not really very well loved. I didn't use it that much. So I think I'm going to go ahead and declutter this one. The Salvaje palette was also from very early on. This was also a collab. I can't remember with who, and I can't read their signature down here. So if you guys know, help us out in the comments. But You know, it's a pretty palette. Do I need to keep it? Probably not. I really didn't use it even when I got it. So I'm gonna put this one in the declutter pile. Sweet Talk, this is another classic. I don't know if they still make this one or not. They were for a while, but I would have to check their website to be sure. I believe they at least changed the packaging later on in, you know, over the years. This is one of my favorite peachy tone palettes. And again, it's just a classic. So I'm gonna keep this one. You Are a Cutie. This one I think was a Valentine's Day collab, and I really liked the cooler toned color story. But for some reason, I felt like the formula of this was a little bit lacking. Like this shade got hard pan. I don't know, it seemed a little dusty. I wasn't crazy about the formula. I liked the colors, but I think I'm gonna declutter this one. Flutterby was actually a cool tone palette that I really loved. This has very dusty purples. I wasn't crazy about this pressed glitter, and it's getting everywhere, so it's making it look really messy. I do still like this one, so I'm gonna hang on to it for now. I don't know how long I'll keep it, but at least for right now, it's still good. Plush Like Me. This was another one I feel like was so underrated. Not a lot of people talked about it, but this one had like the coolest, almost like 90s grungy sort of vibe. And you can't really tell from looking at it in the palette, but I remember swatching this and being just blown away by how beautiful these colors were. This is a big favorite and I'm definitely keeping it. All right, here's one I know I can declutter. This was the Alice in Wonderland palette. I literally never used this one past just swatching it once or twice. It's another color story that I just had a hard time with. I felt like there weren't a lot of deeper matte shades. You had all of these lighter pastels, but nothing deeper that I could kind of put in the outer corner except for this black, and I don't usually like to use black shadows, so I wasn't crazy about this one. I'm gonna put this in the declutter. Next up, we have the original Sailor Moon collab, and this one, I mean, looking at it, it looks really pretty. It's visually appealing, but I didn't use this one very much, and I think it's because, again, you have these like mid-tone mattes. There was nothing a little bit deeper. I just didn't feel inspired to create looks with this one. It was hard for me to put looks together. So I think I'm gonna declutter this too. Control Alt Glam was a collab with Mariale, and this one, I mean, I thought it was beautiful, but it's another one that, I don't know, I just didn't reach for it very often. And this might seem like I'm being a little bit picky, but the one thing I didn't like about this palette was this row of warm tones. Like if you cover these up, I feel like this was going in such a good direction. It looked like the same colors as the packaging, very cool toned, very pink and purple. And then all of a sudden you get like warm browns and copper. Like it just didn't really make sense. I wish she had kind of just continued on with this side of the palette, and then I might actually consider keeping it. But for me, I don't know. It's just, again, one of those palettes that was a little bit confusing for me to use, especially if I wanted to like use this warm brown. I didn't really know what to pair it with because all of this stuff over here is cooler. So, all right, I'm gonna declutter this. Ticket to Dreamland. I loved this palette. I loved the outer packaging. I thought it was beautiful. Inside, you have these really pretty colors, but they're not bright. It reminds me of summer, honestly, especially because we go to the Jersey Shore every year. It reminds me of the boardwalk. I just love this. I think it's discontinued, but I'll probably hang on to it because I just like it and I felt like it was fun to create looks with it. So I'll keep it for now. Give It To Me Straight. This was another first year, I think, release from Colourpop, and I loved the rosy shades in this. It's neutral, but I felt like a lot of these colors had more of that rosy undertone that I really like. And there were some, you know, just warmer neutrals like this one, the coppery shade here. But it was just an all-around really good palette, and again, it's a classic. I feel like I have to hold on to this for right now. The Element of Surprise, I believe, was their second release after the Yes Please palette. And this one, you know, everybody at the time was saying like, whoa, this is such a colorful palette. Looking at it now, it's really mostly neutral. It has a pop of hot pink right there, and then this blue, but otherwise it's pretty neutral. But I've been hanging on to this for so long just because it was like their second palette, and there's just a lot of history there. So I'm gonna keep it for now. Next up is Whatever, and this one, I'm kind of torn on this because I like it, but I don't use it. Like when I look at it, I think I'll use these colors, but then when I actually go to use it, I don't know, I just don't wear red all that often, and this was definitely very heavy on the reds, and the other colors that are in the palette are just like warm neutrals, which aren't really anything special. I don't know, I might declutter this one actually. California Love was definitely a favorite of mine. It does have the warm neutrals again, but I liked like this yellow shade right here was just a little something different and interesting. And I loved using this in the crease because I felt like when I paired this with any of these shimmer shades, and then maybe like this terracotta shade on the outer corner, it gave a little bit more of a unique twist to warm neutral colors. So I think I'm gonna keep this one for now. I still really like it. Rendezvous, this is actually one that I haven't used in a really long time. This one looks kind of like Salvaje, which I just decluttered, and I think I'm going to declutter this one too. It's extremely old. I think this was a holiday release from years and years ago now. I don't even know what year that was, but I haven't touched this one in years, so it's going to go. Boudoir Noir. I want to say this was an Ulta exclusive again. Very pretty, basic neutrals. I like this olivey green kind of pop that it had. But as you can see, I think this palette might have been swatched, but never really used. So that tells me I'm probably not going to use it in the future. I'm just going to go ahead and put this over here. Bye Bye Birdie was another pink palette. It had a couple pressed glitters, a Super Shock shadow, which actually still swatches. I'm surprised. I do like some of the shades in here, but some of them I don't. So I don't think it's worth keeping the entire palette just for a couple of colors. So this is going to go in the declutter. Ménage à Moi was also, I think, around the same time as the Boudoir one. And this was kind of like the Making Mauves palette. It's very mauvey, very dusty. I like it, but I have Making Mauves already. So I think I'm going to declutter this one too. Then we have Sweet Nothings. This was another palette that really, the color story was right up my alley. I love these shades, this one and this one. Like the purples and pinks just get me every time, but I feel like I've kept quite a few of those now. So I'm gonna declutter this one even though I really like it. Wild Nothing, this was another one. I believe they still make this one. I think I saw it on their website recently, and I may keep this. It has a really soft, very muted sort of vibe, and I really like these colors a lot. I've used this palette pretty often, so I think for now it's gonna stay here. Lush Life, this is one that I hardly remember at all. Oh wow, it's actually a pretty bright palette. It has a very tropical vibe. It's very pretty. I don't see myself reaching for it very often though, so I should probably just put this one in the declutter. Next up is Double Entendre. This one also one of Colourpop's classics. It's actually in the same packaging as I Think I Love You. The only way you can tell the difference is on the back. It has the name. So this one, again, just warm neutrals, but I'm gonna keep it because nostalgia. It's a Small World was a Disney collab that they did fairly recently. I believe this one is still available as well. It's just not one that I really used all that much. It kind of looks like a lot of other palettes that they've done. I don't know, do I keep it? Do I not keep it? I don't know, maybe I'll keep it just because they still have it on their website. I don't know if I'll ever need to talk about it on my channel, but for now, I guess it can stay. Pretty Please is another huge favorite. Love the mauvey, purpley colors in here. It's very cool toned. It had the bigger pans, which I liked. It had 3 Super Shocks. Are these still good? Let's see. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I guess I'll keep it for right now. I still like it. This is the newest Sailor Moon collab for Love and Justice, and I like this one. I think it's really beautiful. I just got it very recently, so I'm gonna hang on to this one for now. These next two, I feel like were incredibly similar to each other and kind of similar to the Whatever palette as well. So this is all that. And ooh, these pressed glitters, they just get everywhere in the palette. Again, it's a lot of reds, which I don't wear very often. So I think I'm going to declutter this one. And same thing with X's and O's. I mean, this one doesn't even have as much red as it has just a lot of like warm neutrals. So it's nothing super spectacular. I do like this shade up here, Rookie. This is beautiful. It's a coppery shade, but it has these little blue flecks in it. Actually, I think this same shade is in the Good Sport palette too. And it's one of my favorites. So I'm not going to keep this palette just for that one shade if I have it in Good Sport, but let me just double check that. Yes, right here. See, it's a Rookie. It's the same one. So, all right. Yeah, I don't need X's and O's just for that one. Off Melrose is another one that I really like this color story a lot. I don't know if they still make this one, but I like the muted tones. I loved this duochrome shade, these olivey greens. It had the dusty pink. It's kind of like all my favorite colors in one palette. So, I might keep this one just for now. Next up is Enchanted. This one has almost the same packaging as All Amethyst. They're very, very close, but inside, let's see, I just want to compare the two really quick. Yeah, this one has those purples that kind of have more of a pinky undertone, and All Amethyst has the purples with a little more of a blue undertone, which I like a little bit more. So I think I'm gonna declutter the Enchanted and keep All Amethyst. The 1111 palette. This is brand new. I just got this recently. I love it. I've talked about it in so many videos already. I feel like this is a great dupe for the new Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette. It has so many of the same colors, and I have swatch compared them in a couple of videos now, and I think they're so close. So definitely gonna hang on to this one. And last but not least, we have the Snow White collab. This one is a relatively new palette, but I don't know. It's not me. I don't really love all of these colors. I just don't see myself using this one. So I think this is going to go in the declutter as well. So let's see how we did. I felt like it started out kind of rough, but I think I did a pretty good job. Okay, so final count, I'm decluttering 18 and I'm keeping 23. So not too bad. I feel like we thinned these out quite a bit, more than I was thinking I would. So far we're doing well. So let's move on to the middle section of this unit. So in here I have my BH Cosmetics and Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes. Really, this should go pretty quickly. I have decluttered these fairly recently, and also my Lorac palettes, which I also decluttered some things that were in here a couple months back. So this should be pretty fast. I just want to take a really quick look and see if there's anything else I can get rid of. All right, so when it comes to BH Cosmetics, I'm not sure that I'm going to get rid of any of these. I know some of them are no longer available, but I just really like them. I loved their original formula, and I feel like ever since Makeup Revolution took them over, I know they say it's the same formula, but it just doesn't feel that way to me. I bought a couple of their new palettes and they just didn't really stack up to these. So the first one I have is the Zodiac palette, and this was when they used to do their baked formula, and I actually really still like this palette. It had all of the matte shades here and then these beautiful baked shimmers on the outside, and they are just so gorgeous. I mean, they were like high-end quality. I don't really wear this palette that much, but at the same time, I don't know. It's one of those things that I keep for nostalgia. I miss the days of when BH Cosmetics was huge, and now nobody talks about them anymore. So I don't know. It's kind of sad, but it's just, again, a little piece of makeup history that I like to keep. And then when it comes to their travel palettes, I kept all of the ones that I really loved. So again, I don't think I'm going to get rid of these, but I figured I'll just show them to you. So first we have Smitten in Switzerland. This one was a little bit colorful, but again, those muted colors that I really like. So this is a favorite of mine. Avocado Toast, I believe this is still being sold on their website, and hopefully it's the same formula. And this was a green palette, and I felt like for the most part, these are the types of greens that I like. There were a couple of brighter ones, but overall this was a beautiful palette. And again, the formula was just so good. I mean, you pick up so much pigment so easily, and they're really soft, easy to work with. I also really liked the Blueberry Muffin palette. Even though I don't wear blue all that much, I felt like this was sort of a watered down blue palette. It's very, again, muted, not super bright, and you have a lot of those gray shades in here too. So it was just a really pretty cooler toned vibe. Then Lost in Los Angeles was more of a summer type palette. You had some pastels in here. I remember using this to dupe several high-end pastel palettes that were coming out a couple years back when that was a trend. So this was just a really awesome alternative, a drugstore alternative. And then Summer in Saint-Tropez. This was another summery palette, but I just loved so many of the shades in here. Exotic and Coastline were duochromes that were just so pretty. They had like a nice little shift to them. Even the shade Super Yacht right here, it's just the prettiest purple, and they had so much sheen. These are the types of shimmer shades that I like nowadays. All the shimmer shades have micro glitter in them, and they want to give that wet look, but I just love this foiled, more metallic type of a finish. And I don't know, shadows today just are not doing that. Chillin' in Chicago was one that when I first saw it, thought it was kind of blah. But the more I used it, the more I really loved it. It has rosy tones in here. This shade Magnificent was just gorgeous on the lids. Also, this one, Chi-Town, was kind of an unexpected yellow gold that just, I don't know, there was something about how it paired with all of these shades. This one, Jazzy, too. They were just really pretty, kind of warmer toned neutrals, great for fall. So I love this one too. Hanging in Hawaii was, I would say, probably their most neutral out of all of them. You have some warm tones again, you have a couple pops of pink, but it's mostly just like a brown and tan type of palette. But the formula was so top notch. I love the shimmer shades in here again, so like that one. And then Love in London was probably my favorite. You did have a couple of blues here, but the rest was just kind of grays and taupes. You have some browns with a little bit of like a rosy undertone. I haven't used this in a while, but looking at it now, I definitely want to take it out and use it again. So anyway, that's my BH Cosmetics collection. It used to be much larger, but last time I did a declutter, I just really whittled it down to my favorites. All right, and then next we have Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is a brand that I collect, so I've had all of their palettes since the beginning, and I don't know, I can't part with them. I think, again, because this is a brand that takes me back to the heyday of makeup, 2016, 2017, when, you know, everybody was just so excited about makeup, and when I take these palettes out and use them, it just makes me think about that time. So there's definitely a lot of nostalgia behind these. Let's start out with Soft Glam. This is one of my favorites. Unfortunately, I hate how these get so dirty, but they have that soft velvety packaging. So Soft Glam is definitely one of my favorite Anastasia palettes. It's warm tone neutrals, but I like how it has a lot of rosy tones mixed in rather than just like orange and red and all of that. I think it's just a little bit softer and really just wearable for every day. So I'm keeping this one. Next we have Sultry. This is also one of my favorites. I can't believe they discontinued this because it was just like the perfect cool tone palette. It does have some warmer shades in there as well. I think a lot of people described this as a cool tone palette. It's not 100% cool toned, but it's amazing. And when I first got this and I looked at it, I was kind of underwhelmed, but the more I used it, the more I just grew to love it so much. I just felt like all of the color combinations that I could make just really made sense, and it was just an easy palette to use. So I love this one as well. Let's see, these are some of their newer palettes. I'm trying to go through some of the older ones. Next we have the Norvina palette. This actually is one that I just repurchased. I still have my old one, which is crazy. But this one was just kind of starting to dry out a little bit. Like a lot of the shades, I never panned anything, but I came kind of close with some of the shimmers, and it was just getting sort of dried out and scratchy. And she had a special deal going on at one point where these were 50% off. So I got a new Norvina palette. I also have a new Soft Glam palette that's still in the box. I should probably just get rid of the old ones and start using the new ones. But anyway, Norvina is another favorite of mine next to Soft Glam. I just love these colors with my skin tone. I love the cooler tone pinks and purples. And kind of like I was saying with BH Cosmetics, their shimmer shades are just so smooth. When you pick them up, you get so much pigmentation. There's not a lot of glitter. It's just a nice, smooth, buttery shimmer, as everybody used to say. So this is another huge favorite of mine. What else? I'm just looking for some of the older palettes. First, Modern Renaissance. This is another new one that I purchased to replace my old one when they went 50% off. This one, I mean, it had a lot of like hype and everything behind it. It's not my absolute favorite Anastasia palette, but I do like it. It definitely has a place in my collection, so I'm hanging on to that. Also, Subculture. You guys remember this one and all of the controversy surrounding the formula? I really haven't used mine all that much. This is my original, and I just felt like, yes, the formula was very, very powdery. It was hard to work with and blend, so definitely not one of my most used palettes, but I love this color story, and I've used this very often in comparison videos. When, you know, a palette kind of like this comes out, I like to compare it to this. So that's the main reason that I hang on to it. But this is one that you definitely cannot get anymore. Same thing with Riviera. This one kind of came and went. They never brought it back. but I thought this was a beautiful kind of summertime color story. And I believe I did a video on this where I did like 3 different looks with this palette, and I surprised myself by how much I really liked them because I'm not normally someone who wears a lot of color, but I felt like I could make this very wearable for me. So it's a super pretty one. We also have the Jackie Aina palette. This was another really, really good one. I felt like Anastasia was just on such a roll for a really long time. This one, you know, it's a little bit of a deeper, darker color story, but these shades were just gorgeous. This one, Sponsored, was one of the ones I think I used the most. It's this unbelievable green, but there were so many just beautiful shades in this, and the formula was outstanding. Then getting into some of their newer palettes, we have the Cosmos. And now they have the square pans that are a little bit larger. This is a beautiful, beautiful color story as well. I love the duochromes that are in here. The shade Mercury is kind of like a beautiful blue-gray. The one thing I wasn't crazy about with this is that they added some warmer tones, like this deep orangey brown here, and then this peachy shade. I felt like most of the shimmers in this palette are really kind of cool toned, except for maybe this one. And then you have these really warm matte shades that I wasn't quite sure what to do with. It just, I don't know. I don't like mixing warm and cool shades together. I know it can be done, but it just kind of confused me a little bit. So it's not my favorite of her palettes. Also, when it comes to rose metals, this one actually broke in transit. So I never ended up returning it or getting a new one. I just kind of let it go. Mainly because this isn't my favorite of her palettes either. It's a little bit too deep and smoky, so I just don't find myself reaching for it very often. A lot of the shimmer shades are just way darker than what I would use on my lid, and I should have known that going into it, but I wanted to review it for my channel. So anyway, I'm going to keep it because I do sometimes use it for comparisons. Next, we have Nouveau, and this one I have actually an alter ego dupe of this, which I showed earlier in the video, and this is a beautiful palette as well. I love these lighter greens mixed with kind of the peachy tones. It's really, really pretty. Fall Romance is one that I actually really enjoyed. This one I wasn't sure of at first because I felt like it was going to be really deep and dark, and I think the matte shades are, but you can sheer them out pretty easily in your crease, and the shimmer shades were lighter. So I think that's what sort of saved this palette for me because, again, I don't really wear dark shimmers on my lid, but there's only one in this palette. But the rest of them I felt like were really good at kind of lightening up a look. So if you're using some deeper shades, then you just pop a lighter shimmer on the lid and it kind of lifts the whole look a little bit. So I didn't find this to be quite as deep and smoky as I was expecting, and it was just kind of a surprise for me how much I really liked it. And then we had Primrose. This one had some face powders in it. Again, not really my favorite. I felt like this was maybe a little bit just too boring. I have a lot of palettes that look really similar to this. So for me, this one was just okay. The formula was good, but like I said, just a little bit boring. And then these 2 little minis I bought this year, which I kind of regret, the Mini Sultry and the Mini Modern Renaissance. This formula isn't what I remember from the palettes that I showed you down here, the older ones. The original Sultry palette just seemed to have a creamier, softer formula than this one. Not that it's bad, by any means, it's not. But I just felt like I didn't really need this since I already have the Sultry palette, and same thing with Modern Renaissance. It's all the same shades that are in the original, just in this new one, and it's a different formula. So for me, it didn't make sense. When I first saw these, I didn't realize that it was just a selection of shades from the original palette. I thought these were going to be more of a continuation palette or something that was supposed to be a complement. And knowing now that these are just the exact same shades and the formula isn't even as good, makes me wish that I didn't buy them. I kind of regret it, but anyway, I think I'm going to keep everything that I have from ABH right now just because, like I said, I do use these in comparison videos and things like that. And there are also just so many that I really love. So all right, this drawer is done. Okay, so even though I didn't okay, so when it comes to Lorac, I don't think I'm going to be getting rid of much here either. Maybe 1 or 2 palettes that I'm looking at right now, but most of them I want to keep. I did thin these out already pretty recently. So first, obviously the unzipped and unzipped gold. I'm going to keep these. I love the formula. I actually talked about the unzipped palette and used it in a video pretty recently. This is just such a classic palette. It has those rosy tones that I really love, and the formula is outstanding. So I'm definitely keeping that. And the unzipped gold is kind of like the warmer tone version of it, basically. I don't use this one as much, but I still think the formula is amazing. So definitely I'm going to hang on to these. And then we also have their Pro palettes. So the Pro palettes are also wonderful. I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I guess we'll start with 1. This is the original. And I love the layout of these. You have all the mattes up here, shimmers down here. These shimmers are just the softest formula ever. And if you're somebody who doesn't like a lot of metallic sheen, if you just want a soft, subtle satin finish, these are beautiful. They just glow on your eyes a little bit, but they're not sparkly. So if you have textured eyelids, this is the most amazing formula. Definitely great for mature lids. So any of these Pro palettes are going to be great. The unzipped have a little bit more sheen to the shimmer shades. So I would say if you want more subtle, go with these. So this was the Pro 1, and then Pro 2 is kind of like a cooler toned color story. Again, same kind of layout with the mattes along the top, shimmers along the bottom. Pro 3 was just like very, very neutral. It had a little bit of warmth in it, but it wasn't like an overly warm palette. I just thought this one was beautiful. It grew on me. At first, I kind of thought it was boring, but the more I used it, the more I really loved it. And then Pro 4 had more of a rosy color story, which I also love. This one is wonderful. So I definitely want to keep all of these. I think I might get rid of this one. This one, what even is this called? I don't know. But this was like a holiday release, I think. And it's kind of similar to the first one. And I felt like the shimmers in this one weren't as good. Like this one kind of got hard pan. These were a little bit more kind of glittery. They were hard to pick up, kind of like toppers. This is a newer palette from them. So I don't know. I just felt like the formula wasn't there, maybe because it was like a holiday release and it wasn't a permanent palette. So I think I'm going to declutter this one. And same with the Luxe Diamond palette. I think this was also a holiday release, and I did think it was pretty. It has warm tones, it has rosy shades, but I mean, I don't need it. I feel like this is kind of similar to the Pro 4. And as you can see, I barely used this one, so I think I'm going to go ahead and just declutter this now. Next, we have the Artist Edition palette. So this is another one I feel like I don't use all that often. I think I have these same shades in the Soleil and Noir and Fairy Tale Forest palette. So do I really need to hang on to this one? Probably not. It's the same formula and it's really just like very, very basic and neutral. So I think I'm also going to declutter that. I just really don't reach for it as much as I do these. So these are slightly smaller palettes. This one, Soleil, had all of the warm tone shades in it. Again, mattes over here, shimmers over here. I love how she separates them out. This newer formula is not quite the same as the Pro formula. So these shimmers are a lot more foiled. They have more of a metallic sheen. They're still not glittery, but they're not quite as just satin as the Pro palette. So these are a little bit more intense shimmers. So if you like that, I would definitely stick with like the newer palettes. If you like something more subtle, go with these. So I'm going to keep this one. Noir is, sorry, I just kept these papers in here because they have the shade names on them. But yeah, this one was more of a cool toned color story, and I love this one too. It's a little bit more deep and smoky, so I don't reach for it as much as I thought I was going to because I love cool tones, so when I got this, I thought I would use it all the time. But I think because there's a lot of those darker shimmer shades that I don't tend to wear on my lids, I just haven't reached for it as much as I thought I would. But I still do like this palette, so I'm going to hang on to it. And Fairy Tale Forest is another really nice one. This has just, again, beautiful neutrals. You have a few pops of color in here, some greens and some pinks. And I would say out of the newer palettes, this one, Noir Soleil, I probably reach for this one the most. I just think it's the most versatile, and I like every single shade in this palette. I can wear every single shade in this palette. So I'm going to keep this for sure. And then they just have some little 6-pan palettes. So we have Frosted Sequoia, which kind of reminds me a little bit of the Pro 1 color story, very similar. But this is their newer formula with the more intense shimmers. Mystic Oak, this one I really love. This is kind of like a mini version of Noir. It's very cool toned. And then Winter Rose has more of the rosy shades. So this one is super beautiful as well. All right, so I'm keeping most of them, decluttering a few. So let's see what the final count is. So I am decluttering 3 and keeping 12. Okay, so even though I didn't declutter a lot from here, I was able to condense all of these together. So I fit my BH Cosmetics, Lorac, and Anastasia Beverly Hills in this one drawer now, and the one underneath is empty. So I'll be able to use that for something else. And then let's move on to this side. We have Tarte and Too Faced in this bin and Juvia's Place Makeup Revolution on the bottom. So let's go ahead and get to it. All right, so let's start with Tarte. I do definitely see a lot of things that I can declutter here, mostly holiday palettes and things like that. So why don't we start there? First, we have these little ones that I got this past holiday season. They came in a little kit, and they're just like little mini versions of their Tartelette palettes. So we have the mini Juicy with the rosy tones, mini regular Tartelette, which has kind of cooler tone purples, Tartelette Starlight, which has warm tones, and then the Glamazon one, which actually was a face palette. So I like these, they're fine, but I don't necessarily think I'm gonna reach for these on an everyday basis, especially because I have the original Tartlettes and I like those a little bit better than I liked these. So I'm probably gonna just give these away to somebody. I literally only just swatched them. I didn't really use them. So I think when it comes to the holiday sets, I find that I just never reach for them again. So I would rather just have the originals. These, I believe, were the holiday palettes from last year. So again, I did like these. I thought that the formula was good. It's like their new man-eater palettes. They were nicely pigmented, nothing wrong with the formula whatsoever. I don't know. I feel like they were okay. I used them a couple times, but then never really reached for them again. So there was this one that had cooler tones and then this warmer toned option. And I just feel like I have these shades already in the bigger man-eater palette, so it makes sense for me to just keep these and declutter these. These were also from, I believe, not this holiday season, but the one before that. And this one had 8 shadows in it. And then this one, let's see. Oh, it was a face trio again. So these are barely touched as well. So I'm definitely going to just give these to family. Next, we have the Glamazon face palette. This was another holiday collab. I don't know why I have all these face palettes mixed in with eyeshadow palettes, but I think it was just because they were holiday editions. So I just kind of kept all the holiday stuff together, but I'm going to declutter this one too. The one holiday palette I think I am going to keep is this honeysuckle one that I got this year. This one, I just love these colors. I felt like the quality was really good. It is just like a warm toned neutral palette, but I liked that it had the blush. This blush is a gorgeous shade, and it's just an all-in-one good kind of travel palette to have around. So I may actually keep this one for now. Another one I definitely want to declutter is the Big Ego palette. This is not a holiday release, but it came out several months ago, and I just was so disappointed in the formula of this. I felt like it was so messy. Some of these shadows just came up in literal chunks. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what is going on here? Like, look at how chunky these are. And the matte shades were just kind of, I mean, they were pigmented at first, but they blended out too much on the eyes. And then I felt like I had to keep building them a million times. So I think I'm going to just declutter this one. Moving on, we have the Sweet Tarte Double Shot. This was from their Sugar Rush collection at Ulta. And I got this one because I wanted to try this formula. And it actually surprised me. It was really good. The only thing is, this is basically the same as the Tartelette Toasted, which you're going to see in a second. So I don't really think it makes sense for me to keep this one. I can definitely pass it along to friends and family. I just feel like I have these colors already. And then we have the Maneater Vanity Palette. I never even opened this. I got it, I think it was, again, part of the holiday kits. It has little Maneater mascara in it, but it's brand new. So again, this is something I'm just gonna pass on to friends and family. This one is the Power Bar, and I got this because, I don't know, I felt like it was a nice, slim, travel type palette. Did I really use it that much? No. I think, again, when it comes to neutrals, I just really love the Tartelette series of palettes, and that's usually what I reach for when I'm grabbing a Tarte palette or the Maneater. So I don't know. I don't really feel like I need to keep this. It's not like it's taking up that much space, but I think it's just time to let this one go. Here's an oldie but a goodie. We have the Clay Play. Remember this one? This is actually the second version. So the first version I decluttered last time I did this, and that one was an all matte palette, and I just didn't use it as much as I used this one. It had like a bronzer, a contour, and highlighter. This one, I like that it has the blush. So it's really like a true face palette. And then this one also added 3 shimmer shades. The other colors were exactly the same. All of the mattes stayed exactly as the same as the first one. So it didn't really make sense for me to keep them both, but I just thought this one was a little bit more complete because you have the shimmers and the addition of the blush. So I think I'm still going to hang on to this. This is sort of a nostalgic palette for me. So I'm going to put this over with the Honeysuckle. Next up, we have the Maneater palette. So this was the original Maneater, and this one I actually have, it looks new because I had a different one that I used a lot, and that one got really old. And then they had revamped the Maneater, and this used to be just one large shade with this color, and they took that out and they added a black. So that's basically the only thing they changed. And I ended up buying this one thinking that it was going to be different, and it was basically the same thing. So I just decluttered my original one and I kept this one, but I really haven't used this one as much as I had the previous version. So I think I'm probably still going to hang on to it. Again, this is sort of a classic palette that, you know, for Tarte that I just want to hold on to for now. Then we have the new Maneater palettes. This is the original one, and I don't use these as much, again, as I use the Tartelets, but I do think I need to keep these just because I use them occasionally for comparisons with other things, and I do like the formula. I really do. But I think for me, it's the shades in here just aren't really my favorite shades to use. They're very, very warm overall, and as you guys know, I've probably said it a million times already in this video, but I prefer cool tones, so I really don't reach for this one as often. But I'm still going to hang on to it. Then we have the Maneater Nightfall, which is their newer one. And this one, while it does lean a little bit more cool, I remember doing a video on this, and I was shocked at how many of these shades match up to this one. It's basically like they took out a couple of shades from the original Maneater and they just plugged in some blues and purple and called it a day. It's super similar. So I was a little disappointed when I got this one, but again, it's kind of a newer palette. I may have to talk about it on my channel, so I'm going to keep this one. This is another palette that I keep purely for the nostalgia. This was the Aspen Ovard collab. This was one of my favorite palettes for such a long time. It was a true neutral palette. Like when you look at these browns, it doesn't look overly warm or overly cool. It's just super neutral. I think that's really hard to find. Most palettes do go very warm or cool these days. I loved this blush color that was in there too, and the highlighter was really smooth and soft. I just thought this was such a nice, classic, like very soft palette. So I don't know, I'm still gonna keep it, I guess. So best for last, we have the Tartelette palettes. I think these are my most used when it comes to Tarte. Just, I don't know what it is, but the formula for me is just the best. So this is the original Tartelette, and it's an all matte palette. The reason this looks brand new is because it is. I replaced my original, which I had hit pan on, and it was just super, super old and time to replace it. So I got a new one. I haven't used it yet, but I just love these soft, cooler tone shades. So I'm keeping this one for sure. The second one that came out, I'm kind of going in order here of release, is the Tartelette in Bloom. So this one was a little bit warmer tone, but not, again, overly warm. This one did have a few shimmer shades in it, and I like that they made each row its own color story. So up here you have these cooler taupey shades, then here you have more of the neutral browns, and then down here you have some warmer rosy shades, and each row has its own shimmer and then 3 mattes. So I just felt like this was such an easy to use palette. It's really simple to put a look together. Love it. Then they released Tartelette Toasted. This was during that time when warm tones were everywhere. Like shortly after the Modern Renaissance launched, everybody started doing palettes like this, and this one, you know, it's just a classic. It's a really nice fall palette. I tend to reach for it the most that time of year, so I'm going to keep this one. They also had released 2 Tartelette Juicy palettes. I want to say the bigger one came out first. And this one had all of those really beautiful pinks. I really, really love this a lot. But then I think they came out with this one thinking that it would just, you know, kind of go with the regular collection better. It was in the same packaging. I think that's how it went. I'm not positive. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe this one came out first and this one was second, but I was pretty sure the bigger one was first. But I mean, they're basically the same thing. This is just a bigger, more expanded version of it, but I've kept both of them just because I do like some of the shades in the bigger one that the little one doesn't have. So I guess I'll still hang on to both of them. I think this is such a pretty one. I forgot how much I like this. I think I have to take these out and use them a bit more. Then we have Tartelette Energy. So this one I would say is probably my least favorite. It's kind of similar to Juicy, but then they threw in a couple of warm shades. I didn't feel like this was as different to Juicy as it could have been. It's not one that I ever hear anybody talking about. So this is one I'm not really sure if I should keep it or not. I might actually declutter this one. It just doesn't have the same vibe for me as the other ones. So yeah, I think I'm going to declutter it. Same thing with Full Bloom. I mean, this is another kind of expanded Tartelette palette that they came out with, but this was not the original Tartelette formula. These shimmer shades were a little bit more like hard pressed into the pan. This had the quality for me of some of their holiday palettes, which just are not up to the same standard as their originals. So I think while this is pretty and it has a lot of beautiful colors in it, I think I'm gonna let this one go as well. I mean, I hardly used it, as you can see, so I think someone else might appreciate this more than I do. Then we have the little mini tartlettes. So we have the Tartelette Tease. And this one was kind of like a mini version of the original, but it actually has a shimmer in there. Tartelette Flirt was a little bit more on the warm tone side. Whoa. I'm keeping all these, by the way, because I like them. Tartelette Jewel, probably my favorite one. It's just, again, pretty purpley, mauvey shades. And then we had the Tartist Pro to Go. I forgot about the Tartist palettes. Do you remember those? They had kind of the like the square pans and then that row of or column of round pans that were on the side. I don't believe they have those anymore. This one, though, was a really nice formula. Gosh, I haven't used this in years. I think I should probably let this one go at this point. I really don't use these deeper shimmer shades on my lid anymore. So yeah, I just don't see myself reaching for this. Okay, so final count for Tarte. I'm decluttering 17 palettes, keeping 14. Moving on, let's talk about Too Faced. I also did do a declutter of these fairly recently, maybe like 6 months to a year ago, but I still think there's some that I can probably cut down a little bit more. So let's start with just some of the classic palettes and ones that I'm gonna be keeping for sure. The original chocolate bar, absolutely. This one is just one that I can't let go of, partly for nostalgia reasons and partly because I just think the formula was so good back in the day. These shimmer shades are still beautiful. They have so much sheen. These are those beautiful, smooth, metallic shades that I was talking about earlier that I really miss in palettes. These just didn't have all of the glitter that current palettes have. So I also just love this color story. It was a little bit on the cool to neutral side, so I'm definitely hanging on to this one. Chocolate Bonbons is another classic. They don't make this one anymore, and this also was just really pretty cool tones. I thought it was so cute and adorable with the heart shapes. I miss old Too Faced so much. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments, you know, how you feel about how Too Faced has changed over the years, but personally, I miss it so much. So next we had Chocolate Gold. This was another huge, huge favorite of mine. The formula on this was absolutely outstanding. These shimmers just feel so soft. And this was a mostly shimmer palette, but you did have just your basic core neutrals here to do a look with. You could put like this one in the crease, this as like a transition. You have a brow bone highlight, you have a black just to deepen things up, and then you could just pop any one of these shimmers on the lid for an instant look. So I just felt like this was a really easy palette to use. Sweet Peach palette, also such a classic. This one, you know, it was mostly warm tones, not a lot of shimmer shades in here, but how could I get rid of this? It's just such an iconic palette, and it's something that you can't get anymore. So the collector in me is definitely saying to just hang on to it. And it still, by the way, has the really strong peach scent. It smells so good. Then we have the classic holiday palette. So we had the original Gingerbread Spice. This was another one. Oh, it was just so good. If you missed out on this formula, I'm sorry, because the Too Faced of today it just does not compare at all. These are just so soft. You pick up so much pigment just in one swipe, and I loved the colors in here. It was like the perfect fall palette. So I'm hanging on to this one, as well as the Extra Spicy, which is the one that came out next. This one, at first, I didn't love it as much as the original, but I came to love this one, and I remember doing a video on this, and I did so many really pretty looks with it. It's really just fall in a palette, so I love this one. Then we had the Pumpkin Spice palette. I feel like this was the last good one that they came out with for holiday. And again, I liked this one a lot. I remember people complaining that it wasn't fall enough for them because it had some almost like springtime tones in it. I liked that they did something a little bit different. I felt like it, set itself apart from the other two gingerbreads. So I really like this one as well. But then they kind of started to go downhill. Then we had Cinnamon Swirl, and actually this one, it had a pretty good formula. There were a couple of shades that got hard pan, like this one wasn't great, but like this one felt really nice and soft and smooth. So it was a little bit hit or miss. It definitely was kind of starting to go downhill a little bit at this point. I'm not sure that I really need to keep this one, but at the same time, the collector in me is kind of like, well, you have all of the other holiday release palettes, so I guess I'll save it for now. Maple Syrup Pancakes was from this year, and it was a huge disappointment for me. They stopped doing the tin packaging. This one is cardboard, and it just was so lackluster. I was not impressed with this one at all. I was able to get some pretty decent looks out of it, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of pumpkin spice, but this one just had such a better formula. So, again, I think I'll keep it for now because it's the newest one. I may need to refer back to it next year and do comparisons to whatever they come out with next, but I really was very disappointed. The Better Than Chocolate palette was kind of for me like the cinnamon bun one. It had some shades that felt really soft and really nice, and then other ones that just were kind of like, what? Like I tried to dig and I can't even pick up this purple one at all. So it was okay. It wasn't my favorite, but like I said, I do collect these tin package ones, so I guess I'll keep it. Italian Spritz, I believe, came out last spring, and this one was okay. Again, not the best, not the worst, kind of right in the middle, but I do really love the colors that are in here. It's a really pretty spring palette. I do use it, so I think I'm gonna hang on to this one. Oh my gosh, remember these peach palettes? We had the Just Peachy mattes. Oh my gosh, these are just bringing back so many memories. So this was an all matte peach palette, and again, this was back when their formula was top notch. It was amazing. It had the peachy smell. I love this one, but I think my absolute favorite was White Peach. And I know this one got so much negativity on social media when it launched. A lot of YouTubers hated it. Personally, I loved it because I have more of a fair to light skin tone. I felt like these colors just work for me. And at the same time, I can see why anybody who has more of a medium to deep skin tone would hate this palette. It would probably look very chalky. But for me, it was one of my favorite Too Faced palettes ever. So that's the reason that I continue to hang on to it. I do use it occasionally. And this one, even though it doesn't look that used, I got this when they were discontinuing it. It was on sale, and I decluttered my old one that I had. So this one actually isn't too old. It's a couple years maybe. So I will hang on to this for sure. Then we have a couple of these random palettes that didn't really go with any collection. The teddy bear one, I don't really love this one too much. The pan sizes were tiny. They weren't the greatest quality. It was okay, but I like how slim it is, and it fit a lot of shades in one tiny little travel-friendly palette. But do I need to keep this one? No, I never really use it at all. Same thing with the Too Femme palette. This was the same kind of setup, and I thought the colors were really beautiful. Gorgeous spring palette, love the packaging, but the quality was not there. A lot of these shades were so hard to pick up. Like there's no pigment to a lot of these shimmer shades. And it smelled like flowers too, which isn't my favorite scent. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and declutter this one as well. The Born This Way Natural Nudes palette, I do like. This was the first one they came out with like this. Now they have the Cosmic Crush. I think they have another one in there somewhere that I don't have. because I heard bad reviews about the newer ones. This one actually I thought was really nice. It had a good formula, really beautiful rosy neutral shades. So this is another one I wouldn't mind taking out and playing with again. I haven't used it in so long, but I do like it. So I think I'm gonna keep it. Then we have all these little minis. So I don't really think I need to keep all of them. I'll probably just keep some of my favorites. So let's see. The mini gingerbread spice palette is basically a copy of the original gingerbread spice. It's the same shades, just kind of a pared down version. And I didn't use this one because I'm saving it for when my regular gingerbread spice isn't like good anymore and it's expired, then I still have this one. So I am going to keep this one. Salted caramel just had very warm tones. I don't know that this one was one of my favorites, so I might declutter this. Sugar cookie, I do remember liking this one, but yeah, I don't think the formula was the best. You can see this shade has hard pan. Yeah, I like the tones in here. I think it's pretty, but I never wear this, so who am I kidding? I should just get rid of it. The Tickled Peach palette is a mini kind of peachy tone palette, but it doesn't look like Sweet Peach. I mean, when I saw the outside, I thought it was going to be, but I never used this one either. I didn't love the colors of the shimmers, and I didn't wear a lot of these on my eyes. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the declutter as well. Hot Buttered Rum, this was another holiday release. And it's just warm tones again. So there's a lot of repeats here. I really don't think I need to keep them all. But I would say this is a bit different than the gingerbread one. And I like this more than the salted caramel. So I might actually keep this. Forbidden Fruitcake, I want to say this one maybe came out last year. So this one is pretty new, but I never ever reached for it. So I'm probably just going to give this to somebody that I know. It really hasn't been used at all. So I'm going to declutter this. Then we have Kitty Likes to Scratch. This one, you know, I don't love like this side of the palette. I liked this pink shimmer, but I didn't really wear like the red shimmer, this one as much. Yeah, I don't see myself wearing this. So this one is going away. That's My Jam, I think was probably my favorite color story of all of these. I thought this was really pretty, really unique. In some ways, it almost reminds me of the Jackie Aina palette from ABH. The only thing is I felt like the formula was okay. It wasn't my favorite, but you can definitely make it work. So I don't know. I think I'm going to keep this one. I do like the colors in it. And then last but not least is Let's Play. Again, I just feel like this looks like so many of the other ones. So I'm probably gonna declutter this one. All right, so let's see how we did. So the final count is I'm decluttering 8 and keeping 17. So not too bad, especially considering that I did declutter these recently. I was able to get rid of 8 more, so that's a good thing. All right, then moving on to Juvia's Place. I think I'm probably going to declutter quite a few of these. I don't know what it is, but Juvia's Place has kind of fallen off a little bit for me, and not for any particular reason other than for some reason, I just don't gravitate toward a lot of these color stories anymore. I'm going to keep a few of my favorites and declutter the rest. So first up, we have these little palettes, and Blush Rose I definitely want to keep. I really like this one a lot. Even though it has some pink, these are mostly dustier pinks. There's this brighter one, but I don't know, there's something about the combination of the pink with this shade right here. It's just so beautiful. It's more of a unique color, and I tend to wear this one a little bit more in the summertime. So I'm definitely keeping this one. Then we have the Bronze Rustic palette. This one I don't really reach for at all, so I think I'm going to declutter this. Again, it's just warm tones, like we have so many of these already. The Taupes was a really, really beautiful cool toned option. So I am going to keep this one. I felt like a lot of people said the formula wasn't great with this. I didn't really notice that. I felt like it was okay. I'll keep it for now. And for some reason, I seem to be missing the lavender version of this. I can't remember if that's exactly what it was called, but it was purple shades, and I really like that one. It might be in another drawer somewhere, so we may come across it later, but I really like that one too, and I plan to keep it whenever I find it. Then moving on to some of the bigger palettes, we have the Saharan. This one I do really like. I think I'm going to keep it. It's a little colorful, but at the same time, they are more muted colors and they're not anything super bright. So this is one that I do reach for occasionally. The Nubian palette is all neutral, which, you know, normally I would love, but as I've kind of grown in my makeup tastes and things have changed, again, I don't wear the darker shimmer shades that much, and this one has a lot of deeper shimmers. Really, I noticed that the last few times I used this palette, I was just going for this shimmer shade over and over again. So I actually might declutter this one. I never thought I would say that, but it's just not one that I really reach for. Same thing with the Afrique palette. This one, actually, I have never used this one ever. Like, it's completely untouched. So I'm gonna find someone in my life that loves bright eyeshadow and give that to them. The Nomad is one that I definitely really like, so I'm gonna keep this. It kind of has that olivey, khaki undertone that I really enjoy. Actually, it's kind of similar in some ways to the Natasha Denona Yucca palette, so I wonder if this could be a good alternative. I'll have to swatch them side by side sometime. The Warrior by Juvia's Place, I think, is the one that, for me, replaces the Nomad because the shimmers in here are just a little bit more wearable. There are still a couple of deeper ones, but there's also a lot more options just that I feel like I could wear. So I'm going to keep this one. Garden of Juvia's is also one that I really like a lot. It's such a beautiful pastel color story, and I felt like the quality was really good on this too. Sometimes pastels can be a little too light, they don't show up. I felt like this one really was nicely pigmented, so I'm going to keep this. Tribe is another one that I rarely, if ever, use, so I am gonna declutter this one. It's just too bright and colorful. It's not something that I would wear. The Deuce palette, this one actually is really pretty. It's very unique. I may still keep this one because this color is one of my favorites. I really love this so much. It's kind of a silver gray, but it has a little bit of a blue undertone, and I like this color as well. This one is also gorgeous, and look at how intense these shimmers are. They're just so soft and metallic. So, all right, I'm gonna keep that one. Saharan 2 is another one that I just don't ever use. So I think I'm going to declutter this one. The Nubian 2 is another one that, look at this, I have never even touched it. And I think what happened is sometimes during the holidays, she has incredible deals on her palettes. They go for like $8 or $9. And I remember just kind of collecting the ones that I didn't have already without really thinking about whether I was going to use it or not. So I'm going to also gift this to somebody in my life who can use it. And then we have the Magic palette. So this one's a little bit of a tougher call for me because I don't really wear it all that much, but at the same time, I have used this quite a bit when it comes to comparisons with other palettes. Not to mention this shade right here is one of my favorites. It's like this blue with a lavender shift, but I don't know if that's really a reason to keep it or not. I'm kind of undecided, so I might hang on to it just for right now. All right, so when it comes to Juvia's Place, I am decluttering 6 and keeping 8. All right, moving on to Makeup Revolution. I'm probably gonna get rid of a significant portion of these because I just really don't reach for them. There are drugstore and more affordable palettes that I just find myself reaching for more often, like from Colourpop, Moira Beauty, Profusion, LA Girl. I'm just not the biggest fan of Makeup Revolution's formula in general. So let's start with these first two. These are actually ones that I got fairly recently. I wanted to try their formula again just to see if I was missing anything, and I was really disappointed. I got these at Walgreens. So this was the Air palette. These were based on zodiac signs. I thought it looked like a really pretty cool toned color story, but the pigmentation just really wasn't there. And then this was the water one. I really liked the purple shades in here, but again, I don't know, I felt like the quality wasn't there. Also, I have some palettes from XX Revolution, which was a different kind of spin-off line that they had. And these were decent quality, but I'm not even sure that these are sold anymore. I don't remember them ever coming to the United States. I got them on their international website. I felt like even though these were kind of pretty, I haven't reached for them in years and years, so I think it's probably time to just let these go. I had also gotten some mini palettes from the XX line. So there was this one that was more browns. What was this called? Cozy AF. Then there was Basic Peach. They were a little bit chunky, to be honest with you. Like, these shimmer shades just kind of came off a little bit crumbly. So they weren't my favorite. And then this one was Pretty Little XX. I loved these colors, but I just don't use them, so it really doesn't make sense to hang on to them. I still have 2 of the Forever Flawless palettes. I don't even know if these are around anymore. I haven't seen them at Ulta. I think they might be at Target, but I have the Optimum one, which was probably my favorite. This sort of reminded me of the Subculture palette from ABH. I thought the formula on these was better than some of their other palettes. They were really, really pigmented. So I might still hang on to this. I think it's a good affordable option. And then this was Unconditional Love. This one was a pink toned palette, and it actually is very similar to the Natasha Denona Love palette. I believe I used this in a dupe at one point. So I think I will keep these just in case I need to use them for comparisons. And I mean, the formula is decent. I also have some of their Reloaded palettes. I remember doing a video on these back way when I first started my channel, and it's like one of the most popular videos on my channel right now, which is kind of crazy. But they had some that were dupes. So this one, Iconic Division, was supposed to be a dupe for Subculture. This one is a Modern Renaissance dupe, Iconic Vitality. I mean, all the shades were pretty much exactly the same, but Hypnotic was supposed to be an Anastasia Sultry dupe. Smoky Neutrals look like the original Naked palette from Urban Decay. This one was probably one of my favorites. This was Velvet Rose, and this is supposed to be a soft glam dupe, and I did feel like the colors came really close. I mean, I don't feel like the formula on these is as good as the originals, but they're like $8, so they're an affordable palette, and the quality is okay. This one, Visionary, is supposed to be like a Norvina dupe. I mean, I feel like they're pretty pigmented. The shadows are a little bit crumbly, but I feel like if you use them over a primer or with a glitter glue, they're not bad. I mean, they're $8, so I think they're a good affordable option. So I think I'll probably just hang on to those. Also, I have the Maxi Reloaded palette, which surprised me at being pretty good. I mean, it's huge. There's so many colors in here. A lot of rosy shades, but I definitely want to keep it because, again, I just think there's not a lot of eyeshadow palettes at the drugstore, so I like keeping as many as I can in case I ever have to like do comparisons, or if you want an affordable alternative to something. Then Ultimate Nudes is a dupe for the Huda Beauty Light Obsessions palette, and I think this one, I mean, it's not as good as Light Obsessions, I'll be honest, but I feel like the formula isn't too bad. Like, it has really nice shine. The pigmentation is pretty decent. It's not the greatest, but it's an under $10 palette. So, I mean, I think it's pretty. I guess I'll keep it for now. And then this last one, the Wild Animal Courage palette. It breaks my heart that this is no longer around because this was such a good affordable palette. It was the literal best formula they have ever done. These are so soft, incredible pigmentation. I was blown away by this. I was not expecting to love it. And if Revolution could somehow go back to using this formula, whatever it was, I think they would beat out every other drugstore brand. Like, that's how good these were. So I'm going to keep this palette just because I like it. It's not around anymore, but I do use it sometimes. So let's do a final count. All right, so all total, I am decluttering 7 palettes and keeping 11. Okay, so these drawers look so much better now. I have Tarte on one side, Too Faced on the other. It's not a big mess like it was before. And then down here, I have Juvia's Place and Makeup Revolution. I may end up moving these Revolution palettes over to my drugstore section and making this a bin of indie palettes. Like, I have the Juvia's Place, maybe I can put my Sydney Grace and some other indie brands over here, and just put the Revolution with all of my drugstore palettes. All right, let's move on to the other side of the room. Okay, so this side of the room is really the bane of my existence. They're all over the place. I have them in these plastic containers that I got at Target a long time ago, and nothing fits anymore. So I'm just gonna go through each drawer one by one. We really need to thin these palettes out, so let's get started. Okay, drawer number 1. This has a lot of different mixed things from several different brands. So I guess let's just dive right into it. First up, we have the Doll Squad and Doll Squad 2.0 from Doll 10. These palettes are some of my absolute favorites in my entire collection. The formula is just incredible. So here we have the Doll Squad 1, and this one was a little bit more cool toned. It also had some warmer shades in it. And Doll Squad 2, let me just show you a comparison, is basically all warm tone. So I love both of these. I use them constantly. I heard a rumor that they're coming out with another one that's more cool toned, so I'm super excited for that. But the formula is just insanely good. It has those buttery shimmers that I really love. The matte shades have the most incredible smooth pigmentation. It's a talc-free formula. It is just such high quality. So anyway, I'm definitely keeping these 100%. I also have 3 palettes from What's Up Beauty. So this is an indie brand that I have come to really love. I started with the Geodes palette, and I want to say I originally saw this on Tati's channel. She was reviewing it a couple years ago. And this palette just looked so beautiful. These are also a talc-free formula made in Italy. The duochromes in here are just absolutely stunning. And again, the color story is beautiful. So I definitely am keeping all 3 of these. So this was the Geodes palette. Then they have Desert Monsoon, which is slightly more jewel toned. It's a little bit of a deeper version, but just as stunning. And then they recently came out with the Dragon Eye palette, which has 7 different duochromes in it. It's just amazing. So you can get these from their website. They also have them over on Amazon. So that's where I usually buy their stuff. They actually have a beautiful nail polish line as well and really great brushes. So definitely check them out. I also have this really old palette from Marc Jacobs. This is the Stiletto palette, and I've held on to this all these years because I don't know, I just love it. I think this is right up my alley. I kind of wish this is what Natasha Denona did with her Xenon palette, adding in a little bit of like gray with a purple undertone to it. This shade right here is one of my favorites. It's gray, but it kind of like shifts to blue a little bit. Some of the sparkle that's in there is just different colors. I mean, it has so much dimension and depth. I did hear that Marc Jacobs Beauty is coming back, so I think it would be fantastic if they re-release this palette. I don't know if they will, but we shall see. Either way, I'm keeping it. I also have this NARS palette called Summer Unrated, and really, I mean, once you have one NARS palette, I feel like you have them all. I haven't gotten any releases since then because I feel like every time a new palette comes out, it looks very similar to this one. So this is just the one that I have and the one that I keep. So I'm just gonna, I guess, continue using this one. I also have this one Lawless palette. It's called the Baby one. And this is just like warm tone neutrals, basically. It's not my favorite palette. I don't really use it all that often. It's the only Lawless palette that I have though. So I may keep it for now. I really want their newer one that came out around the holidays. I think that one looks really pretty. Next we have the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette. This is just like such a hot palette right now. They just re-released it and everybody was going crazy for it. I feel like it's okay. I think the matte shades have a really soft feel, but they're also very powdery. And the shimmer shades are kind of more like toppers. So I don't find them to be super pigmented. I think they're basically like a wash of glitter and not much color. So it's not my favorite, but I'm still gonna hang on to this because I do a lot of comparisons with it. I also have this little quad from Makeup by Mario. I don't even know if he still has these. This is called Bronzy Glam. And it is a really cute bronzy palette, so I might keep it. I really like the formula of this one. I also had recently gotten some palettes from Beauty Bay. So this is the Rich palette, and I haven't played with it that much, but so far I really like it. Even though it's just Beauty Bay's house brand, I felt like the quality was more up there with higher end brands. The shimmers are just really soft, very pigmented, the mattes as well. So I was impressed for sure. I have to keep playing with these though. So I'm gonna keep this one. And another Beauty Bay palette I got was Metamorphic. And this one, oh my goodness, it was so beautiful. I'm kind of curious to see how this compares to the new Colourpop Twilight palette that's coming out because it seems like it has similar tones, but the duochromes in here were just so stunning. And the formula, again, really good. So definitely keeping this. From Lime Crime, I have the Venus XL palette. This is just such a really pretty rosy tone palette. I don't hear a lot of people talking about this one actually, but I do like the formula, so I'm gonna hang on to this one for right now. I also have 2 Pat McGrath holiday palettes. This one is the Mothership Mega Celestial Odyssey. So there's what that one looks like. I believe these have been discontinued for a while now, but I thought the colors in them were pretty, so that's sort of why I've hung on to them. And the other one that I have was Celestial Divinity. This is my favorite out of the two. I just really love the shades in here a lot. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. So even though it's been discontinued, I just really like this palette. So I'm gonna hang on to this for now. I also have Pat McGrath Divine Rose. This one kind of disappointed me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. It was $129 or something crazy. And I mean, the formula is fine, but I didn't feel like it was super extraordinary. It's just kind of like a basic color story. I do keep it because every once in a while I have to compare it to something, but I don't really wear it all that often, to be honest. This one is an oldie but a goodie. This is the Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette. If you were into makeup back in like 2016 or so, you probably remember this one. This is another one that I just keep for the nostalgia. It's like a piece of makeup history again. It is a really incredible formula. I just don't know if this is too old for me to use at this point, so I really don't use it. But like I said, it's just one of those things that I tend to keep because it's fun to pull out and show it every once in a while. Then I have these palettes from Game Beauty. They had sent these to me in PR last year sometime, and I was kind of hit or miss with these palettes. I felt like I did get some pretty looks with them, but I also didn't feel like they were the longest lasting on my eyes. This one was Cyberpunk. Then we have the Victory palette, which was also a really pretty interesting color story. I think that's mainly why I kept these, is because they don't look like a lot of other palettes in my collection. This one is the Adventure palette. And also I like gaming too. So the game nerd in me kind of likes these as well. The Harbinger palette was one of my favorites. I really like this one. This shade Dawn is absolutely gorgeous. And then we had the Fantasy palette. This one was more pastel-y. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really use these all that often, but at the same time, they're sort of new. I haven't really given them much of a chance. So I think I'll probably hang on to these as well. So really, I don't think I decluttered anything in this drawer. So let's count. Okay, so 22 palettes in this drawer. I didn't get rid of anything. We're off to a bad start. All right, guys. So unfortunately, I think I'm going to stop here because this video has just gotten way, way too long. I know I tend to talk about each palette, and while I wanted to try to fit this into one complete video, I'm going to have to do a part 2 because I've really only gotten halfway through. So bear with me. I am going to post part 2 as my next video, so you're not going to have to wait too long. But I just need some more time to kind of get this going, and I didn't want to make this video 4 hours long. So stay tuned for part 2, and if you hung in there all this time, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And also, if you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider hitting the subscribe button before you go. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you all in my next video. Take care. Bye.